Hey Sunil, hey Abhinav. Hey Sunil, hey Abhinav. Thanks for joining. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, DJ. Hi. Good to see you.
Oh,
Long
good to see
time.
you. Yeah. Turn on the video if you want. We have a few minutes to warm up.
Good, I could make it up. I mean, this is really cool time. 7 o'clock Sunday morning.
Early for you, I know. Thanks for joining.
I usually wake up by 6, so not really that early.
Okay.
आणि सकाळी सकाळी असं काय ऐकायचं असेल तर आणखीनच चांगलं. That would make my day, right?
I know. I'm glad we have the right connection because sometimes bandwidth could be a problem. But
Yeah, others are sleeping, that's why.
yeah,
Cool.
hang in there for others to join.
Yeah, sure. काल मला काही एक चांगल्या गोष्टी सापडल्या माझ्या फेसबुक पेजला आहेत. इफ यू वॉन्ट टेक अ लुक आर आय विल सेंड दॅट इन ईमेल टू यू.
Sure. What kind of things are there?
सांगतो एक मिनिट. दे आर राईट ऑन माय जस्ट अ सेकंड. एक सेकंड ना मला माझं पेज बघू दे. वॉल बघू दे. ते जुना टीव्हीवरचा कार्यक्रम आहे. शाकुंतल ते मानापमान वगैरे असं काहीतरी पार्ट 1, 2, 3. यू माइट वॉन्ट टू टेक अ लुक. नाही त्याला हा बरोबर शाकुंतल ते मानापमान युट्यूब वर काल सापडला मला पार्ट 1, 2, 3 म्हणून. माझ्या वॉलवर सापडेल नाही मिळालं तर आय कॅन ऑलवेज शूट यू अ मेसेज.
Okay, no worries.
All right.
Charlie bhai, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, sir. Thank you for the honor.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Am I early?
You're not early. You're exactly on time. I think others are hopping in.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it will be 5 minutes or so before.
जी. बीबी को भी बुलाता हूँ.
Yeah. Shri, thanks for joining. Girish, thanks for hopping in.
Yeah, so I think, Dhananjay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, the video part hopefully should be, hopefully you can see me now. Okay.
Yes, we can see you now. I'm going to enable gallery view so I can see all of you at the same time. That's wonderful. Hey, Shri.
Let's see if I can.
Are you able to hear the background Tanpura I'm playing here? It's pretty light at the moment. I hope you can hear it. Good. So I'm using Zoom for the first time for these kind of sessions. At work we use it, but this will end in about 45 minutes. So we have finished about 5 minutes of wait time. Maybe a couple of more minutes and we can jump in, Girish, and then um, in the meantime others should join. Yeah, Vinash, thanks for joining.
Namaskar.
We'll get started in a couple of minutes, okay? Hang in there.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yogi sir, thanks for joining. Perfect. I can see you now, Yogi.
Namaskaram.
Namaskar. So I think we have the critical mass. Girish, are you ready on your side?
Yes, sure. So,
So what we can do is jump in and then let others catch up. I'm glad everybody is able to join and everybody is keeping safe, taking precautions. But we thought we'd start something like this, introduce a new artist every weekend. And today the topic is Pandit Kumar Gandharva ji. I grew up listening to him for several years, and I didn't know his legacy and name and such until I grew up a bit. But the music was playing all the time in our house. And then I ran into Girish, thanks to Yogi, is that apparently Girish, Shivsagar, if you can wave at people so know who you're talking about. So that's Girish on top. So he has had a close association with Pandit Kumar Gandharva ji. And he has lots of memories and anecdotes to share. So this is a first pass we'll do with Kumarji, and then we'll come back to you probably a week or two later further down with a lot more information on this. The plan today is talk about his music, explore it a bit, listen to Girish's commentary, and I'll try to hum a few lines here and there once in a while just to keep things going. Awesome. So, Girish, with that, it's all.
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so one major correction. Of course, I never got to meet Kumarji,
Okay.
but my dad knew him very well. My wife personally had the pleasure of being in their house and so forth. So, but then I'm from Indore. My wife is from Ujjain, and Kumarji is from Devas. So those who may not know, these are pretty close. Like Indore, Ujjain is like 55 kilometers. In Ujjain, Devas is pretty much like next door, kind of.
Okay.
So I come from that area where Kumarji spent most of his later part of life. So what I was thinking was, but through my dad, my mother was a musician, classical musician. So I grew up with a lot of music all my life. My wife is a classical musician. And she had the, let's say, honor to be in his house. So we'll later on get to have her speak few things. But what I was thinking, Dhananjay, today, for those who may not know Kumarji, I will go through a little bit of a brief history of him, and then I will mostly be narrating what are my anecdotal experiences talking to the artists who actually lived and breathed through all his life, and what I have heard from them because of my association with those artists. Now, my closest encounter with Kumarji indirectly was his grandson Bhunesh. whom I could connect really well. I saw him in person at a performance, and after he found out that my wife was from Ujjain and I'm from Indore, I mean, we hit it off and we started talking, typically what people talk in that area. So with that said, let me kind of start and give a little bit of Kumarji and who he was, and then kind of narrate some of my anecdotal stories that, at least when I researched internet, I didn't find any of these. So these are not there out there. These are mostly anecdotal, let's say, conversations that I had with people who really knew him well. So with that said, let me start with a little bit of his history and then illustrate a little bit of his greatness in terms of what he has contributed. So I'm going to read some of my notes that I kept just to make sure I cover all the important things. So first, he was born in Belgaum area in 1924. And his original name is Shivputra Siddharth Maya Kom Kalimat. And then he lived with us till 67 years of age in 1992. As you know, he was called Kumar Gandharva, but the way that title came to him was his brilliance at a young age. So at the age of 8, until age 8, pretty much he never sang, and then suddenly, his older brother was a classical musician. His father knew classical music, particularly Bal Gandharva, who is a famous Marathi singer. And there is even a movie on him. But Bal Gandharva was the kind of great musician that his father used to listen to all the time. And Kumarji sort of absorbed that indirect music style of from this Bal Gandharva. And so at the age of 8 or 9 or so, when he first time all of a sudden displayed this amazing classical knowledge from nowhere during a performance, is when we somehow understood who is this all of a sudden a brilliant person who knows music without even learning it. So when his father took, so his father was at a mutt. He used to be a priest of some sort, looks like to me from what I can tell. But when he introduced his son's music to this, the chief priest there, all he could say is that I'm not listening to a human being, I'm listening to this Gandharv, which is basically in Hindu culture, Gandharv is like somebody who's like almost like a demigod of some sort. Mm-hmm. And that he's singing this music from this Gandharv instead of like singing from a human. Mm-hmm. So that's how he got the name Kumar Gandharva, because at a young age, that's what happened. Well, now rest of the things are, I'm going to kind of go by a little bit of the facts and some of the anecdotal parts.
Can I kind of warm up the crowd a bit by a few lines of a
Sure.
Bandit?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I think some of these folks are anxious to listen to some music as well, so I want to make sure they are not disappointed. But I am in no shape or form or in a way qualified to even attempt his bandishes. But just documentary or conversation may not be as entertaining. So let me sing a few lines and then I'll turn it back to Girish with the next topic. So there is a bandish, Mangala Dina Aaj, Bana Ghara Aayo. And I'm singing this just out of my melody because I've been listening to this for several years. I may not have the right verbiage or lyrics in my head, but I'm going to just go with the flow and then see what happens. Okay? A few lines here and there. मंगल दिन आज बना घर आयो मंगल दिन आज बना घर आयो मंगल दिन आज मंगल दिन आज बना घर आयो आनंद भई मैं तो बावरी भई मैं तो मंगल दिन आज बना घर आयो मंगल दिन
Very nice, very nice. I mean,
बनरा मुख देख सहलो घर आयो बनरा मुख देख बनरा मुख देख सहलो घर आयो आनंद भाई मैं तो बाबरी भाई मैं तो मंगल दिन आज बना घर आयो मंगल दिन आज okay. Over to you, Girish. I'm good.
okay. That's nice. I mean, that did remind me of Kumarji. And I'll come back to the way you sang.
बहुत खूब, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
बहुत अच्छे.
बहुत अच्छे. Yeah. I got. I mean, I could. Yeah, it went well. So I think what I wanted to kind of touch on few of his, let's say, dates that will just give some reference, because I want to come to where now my personal anecdotal things will start, which I didn't find anywhere on the internet. But some dates are important. So this is like we were around age 8 or 10 when his brilliance comes up. One incident that you will see on even, I think there is an old clipping as well. Many years ago I saw. I haven't seen that recently, but where Kumarji is singing at the age of about 11, and among the audience is one of the famous names. This is like 1935 now, because he was born in 1924. So this is around 1935. In the audience is Tansen of those days, Ustad Fayyaz Ali Khan. He was considered Tansen of those that era. He was in the audience, and here is Kumarji performing in front of him. And there are a few other stalwarts there, but one of them that you all can relate is Saigal was there in the audience, by the way. And so this is his first public performance. He's all dressed up in his sherwani, and he does like a typical Muslim type of harkate during the singing. And I mean, it's one of those mesmerizing events where they said, man, this guy has some kind of style. But the way he performed and the way he like picked up the psalm and how he dealt with that whole thing is what really captured everybody's attention. So this was like, he started with a big bang, and then he ended up with there is anecdotal evidence, anecdotal story about some Bollywood person shooting in Belgaum and finding this talent and realizing that he really needs a good teacher. And so that person apparently took him to Professor Devdhar in Mumbai. And so this is really where Kumar, at a young age of, I would say 12, 13 years, is completely getting groomed by Professor Devdhar. It may be a few years even before that, but I think something like that. So now let's fast forward to 45 time frame. And this is where some of my personal connections get into the story. And that individual's name is Krishna Ram Mujumdar. He was a singer in Malwa area from Gwalior Gharana. And he happens to be the father of Kalpana Zokarji, whom I have the association for 5 generations now in our families. And she's from, originally she's from Devas, but she was married into the Zokarvar family, who were living in the same Wada as I was growing up in that Wada in Indore. And Kalpanaji herself is an accomplished classical musician. Pandit Bhimsen Joshi used to come to Malwa area, and Muzumdarji was the one who was organizing all these. Now, this is actually a very critical part, because it so happened that around this 1940s time frame, Krishna Rao Mujumdar, who is Kalpanaji's father, was a famous architect actually. By profession, he was a famous architect. And he went to Mumbai for a advanced course in architectural engineering. And because he was a musician, he used to go to, in the evenings, he used to go to Professor Devdar's house to learn music while he was doing that course. And there he sees Kumar, who is about 8 years younger to him. And this amazing musician who's teaching students at a very young age. I mean, he's that good. And so that's how Krishna Raoji became friends with Kumar. That becomes a very important development later in his life, because come about like now, like at the age of 24, so that puts it around 1948, Kumarji gets married to Bhanumati. And sadly, about a year later, he's diagnosed with the lung disease. And this is the most critical period where Kumarji, in this humid environment in Mumbai, his lungs cannot take this disease really well. And so doctor said that you got to move to a dry climate. And so the first person who comes out to help, according to my anecdotal finding or my conversation, is that it was actually Krishna Mujumdar, who happened to be from Devas. He said, come on over here, the climate is very good for you here. And he was well-to-do person himself. And this is how actually Kumarji ends up in Devas. And this may not be obvious to a lot of people. I didn't find this in Wikipedia, for example. Anyway, here Kumarji is actually given a place in the house. And he has no money, and of course he's funding all his medical treatment. And then there is no medicine. That time there was no medicine for this lung disease, which was misdiagnosed as tuberculosis, unfortunately. But anyway, about 6-8 months later, he becomes better. His wife Bhanumati by then is given a job at a local school. So now they move into a new house. And so from there, Kumarji is still recuperating. So between 1948 to 1952, while he's in his, basically, let's say, bed, contemplating about the nature and the folklore tradition that you see in Malwa, and then a lot of things you see in Kumarji's Gaiki, which is around, let's say, Kabir, which is basically in Malwa area, if you go, there is a Nath Sampradaya. And they have a lot of folk music, and I have grown up with a lot of folk music myself. And I can see, Kumarji absorbing a lot of those elements during his downtime, let's put it that way. And then comes like 1953, which is when he finally recovers, and the genius in his comes out. Now he has to deal with just one lung, and he adjusts his style, where if you look at the way Dhananjay sang, for example, he would take his breath in basically short So his music is, if you look, like he will not go very deep a lot because his lung doesn't allow him to take that.
Yeah.
So he will break it into small chunks and still do this brilliant job of bringing all the, let's say, all the aro avro that he's doing, but he's kind of breaking into small chunks as he goes.
Yeah.
So this was a style that he had to develop to adjust for his lung capacity.
Yeah.
And this became the typical, let's say, adaptation that Kumar did to still do justice to the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one thing that you will see in his singing. Now, where are some of the innovations? I mean, some of the, let's say, if you look at, let's say, critiques of Kumar, they will say that he was a rebellion of some sort. But I think that is a very wrong notion. If you look at some of the, artists, मेरा तो क्या है, छोटा मुंह बड़ी बात kind of thing. I'm not a musician, so this is in a territory that I'm not qualified to even comment. But from my little understanding, is that Kumarji, what he did was really, couple of things that he did really well. First of all, he had very good, let's say, genius about understanding of the sur and the shruti, which is basically like when you have the sur combine themselves, it is through the shrutis that you really bring out all the different subdivisions within that sur. So Kumarji is one of those finest example of having that understanding of shrutis. And so now when you look at his folk music that he has really brought to our attention, and again, this Nath Sampradaya, Malwa area, Devas, I have been personally to that place where Kumarji actually would dress up as a pretty kind of a common man with torn pajama, shirt. Again, this you won't find it. This is all anecdotal conversations. And what he would do is he would hide himself inside a kambal and take his tape recorder. And in the night, he will sneak into this gathering of this Nath Sampradaya people who are out in the little hill. I have been to that particular area where he used to go and actually record this folk music and then bring it back. And then he would compose those same things in his classical versions. So if you look at the folk music, it's pretty much like, it's more or less like 3 steps, and it kind of goes in 3 steps to the high pitch, and then it will come down, and then pretty much it goes between that. What Kumarji did was really understand that music and bring all the, let's say, the sat sur within them, and then formalize that music without losing the folksy nature of those tunes. And this is the brilliance of Kumar. Only Kumar could do it because he understood that music and could do justice to that music.
You want to throw some examples?
So this is one of his, let's say, highlights of his contribution to our style of music, Hindustani classical music.
Is there an example, Girish, that we can throw of the folk songs that Kumarji sang?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Is there an example, a sample song you have in mind that you want to mention that had the folk element of Kumarji's music?
I don't have as such, but like if you look at Hans Akela, which is one of his famous Kabir song, it is such a amazing, let's say darshan of what Kabir is trying to tell you through music. And bringing that bhav. I think that Hans Akela, which is one of the Kabir's pad, comes to my mind. And I'm not a singer, so unfortunately I can't sing unless Dhananjay, you want to sing that one,
So let me do this. Let me sing his slightly drut bandish.
Okay.
It's not about folk music yet. It is not it's a bit different. It's not about Kabir also, but
Okay.
it's a Drut Khayal. It's based off of Nand Raga, Rajana Abato A. That's the Chalan. So let me give it a shot. Rajan Abato A. आजा रे राजन अब तो आ जा रे पीरन रहत कजरा खन में राजन अब तो आजा रे राजन 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 अब तो जा रे तीरन रहत कजरा खन में राजन बना सहू रे बिया बना सहू सहू बना सहू रे करे सुरियान राजन अब तो आजा रे राजन अब तो जा रे तीरन रहत कजरा खन में राजन अब तो
क्या बात है.
Yep. Let's talk about folk music now.
Great job, DJ Sahib. Great job.
Yeah, DJ, are you there?
DJ Babu,
Ajay.
yaar, mazedar. Even though I don't understand the tune and the nuances and the ragas, it's so soothing, it's so nice. I wish I knew about him more.
Yeah,
Yeah, you are so right.
Bit
Thank
different
you.
genre than what I've seen done in general in public. But
Very nice.
We'll do this more often. Thank you for plugging in.
No,
And then
music. This tells me music doesn't have any boundaries.
Absolutely.
Language.
Absolutely. It's a physical phenomenon. Physical phenomenon.
Yes, I'm really enjoying it. Thank you.
Perfect. Girish.
Yeah, so I'll kind of pretty much end with a little note. So, and then I'll introduce my wife also. She can say a few things about Kumarji's experiences. So, one final thing I think I want to bring. So, his rebellious, let's say, image comes really from the innovation he brought. Because what happened was he really stretched the ragas to their let's say the rag darshan that he was able to bring out, that nobody could do that, is what really gave that rebellious image to him. Because they always considered him, he was experimenting. But if you talk to the people who are more qualified, a lot more qualified than me, what their analysis suggests is that really what he could do that others could not do, and therefore he was able to bring out that beauty of that rag. So if you look at, for example, what he did within the my favorite, which is I love personally thumris, and then tappa is another variety of thumri. The nazakat in a thumri, a different aspect, you bring it out in a tappa, which is like a little, and then there is another thing which is called tarana, where the words are nothing, but the Kumarji used to say that tarana is like the artist, after having sung everything, still has something that he could not express, and therefore he does that tarana to kind of try to fill that gap. And another famous thing he used to say was that really your kant, which is trying to say the naad, which is like the real true word, but then as soon as you speak, you have basically did a ghat on that word by destroying it, by injuring that sound, which is like the eternal sound that trying to come out of you, but the moment you spoke, you kind of did a ghat on it.
Yeah.
So he was that sensitive. Another thing about him was his tanpuras that he used to tune. I think there is almost nobody who was so good at tuning those tanpuras and being so sensitive about the tanpura as an instrument that nobody pays attention, especially nowadays we have these electronic tanpuras.
Yeah.
But there is a story, actual incidents where a tanpura, and like sometimes you have two, most of the time you have two tanpuras, and both tanpuras will be so perfectly tuned with what he was going to sing, and he was so good at tuning them. And there is one incident where one of his disciples says that these tanpuras were cold before they came into right before the performance. And so Kumarji said, okay, let them warm up because they will not be able to keep up with they will not be able to live up to their own, let's say, soul. And so he waited until those tanpuras were warmed up, and then he tuned them. I mean, he was that sensitive of a person when it came to tanpuras.
Hey, Girish.
I think with that said, maybe I'll have my wife speak a little bit because she actually saw Kumarji. In my case, only my mom and dad knew him, but I never got to meet him. But I used to go by his house so many years.
Yeah.
But I never took time to go and at least say hello to him at one time at least.
Yeah.
But here is my wife. Maybe she will introduce herself and say a little bit about her experiences.
We are 37 minutes into the Zoom call. Just in case Zoom takes the session away in next 5 minutes, I can send another link out. So some of you who want to hang out for some more time, we can continue. But this link might be hijacked. So just hang in there. Don't give up on us. Manjuji, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining.
Nice to meet you. I don't have much to say. Just it was my privilege to go to Kumar Gandharva's, and I requested him when I was doing masters in music that please can you give me lessons, but he denied because he had lung problem. So he said my wife will teach you. So I started taking lessons from Komkaliji.
Oh, nice.
And I went few weeks and my voice started giving up. I had swelling in my vocal cord and I couldn't continue, but it was my pleasure to be there, and it was my privilege actually to get lessons from her and get to know very nice people. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, she has those memories of Kumarji. I mean, but honestly, he was one of the finest souls you will ever meet. The last part I remember when I call my bhavi, Kalpana ji is like my bhavi. She got to know him, since childhood. But he was a very, very let's say kind, gentle person. I think he had gone through some of the troubles in his life. His first wife died during childbirth. Then he married Komkaliji, and so he had already kind of had this, let's say, an aspect of life that changes your perspective on life. And so if you look at his Kabir singing, which is almost like, he brought that, let's say, the Kabir's sense of bairag that we call it in our philosophy, where there is this almost like a tragedy that life can unfold on you, and then that keeps you somehow detached from the worldliness. And that's the kind of message that Kabir has, and you can see that Kumar, having lived through that aspect of life, his music kind of reflects that. I mean, that's my interpretation to some extent, but I would say probably, knowing, I'm from that area, and knowing the Kabir style of singing is pretty much ingrained in folk tradition there. You can go to so many villages near Indore and Ujjain and all those areas, and you will not be surprised if you see Kabir kind of dohas being sung by this woman while they are working, for example, doing their daily chores around the house or in a village, and they'll be singing that. And Kumarji captured that beautiful aspect of this culture, formalized it. And from what I know, and I heard this from, I think, Bhuvnesh, who is his grandson, when I met him in Kansas at a concert. And from what I understood, that there are about 700 of these folk, let's say, songs that you actually put complete music notation, and they are kept in Kumarji's house, and they are preserved for the generations to come, thanks to him. So with that, DJ, this is pretty much what I can say. I'm kind of nobody to really comment. I'm not a musician.
This is awesome, though. This is awesome. Thank you for covering so much of information and giving us a background. Speaking of the folk music as well as Kabir's songs and such, should we get Manjuji to hum few lines here and there of anything that comes to her mind?
Yeah, sure.
Can you sing something?
The timing cannot be any better.
Yeah, and especially what lessons she learned. If she can share what lessons she learned from Kumarji or his wife, that will be a good help. Because
Can you sing something?
Something.
I don't know if she can immediately sing, but aaj baithte hain.
Manjuji, I can give you the pitch. Which key do you want?
Aaj baithte hain. Just have a seat here. Thoda idhar focus mein.
You want G? You want G sharp? What do you want?
Kuch ga sakti
What's your
hai.
key?
Means I don't know if I can sing right now.
Okay.
I can sing any bhajan if it is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can sing some abhang or some bhajan you can sing.
Bhajan hai, which was taught by my guru. Manua Rama Nama Rasa Pije.
Are you able to hear the tanpura? Should I increase the volume?
You can increase the volume.
But I'm not sure if your tanpura will match my means wo lagega ki nahi.
I can give you the key that you want. This is an electronic thing, so I can give you the picture.
Kali Pas, pan mi pahun.
I mean, she can bring
it. It's okay. I can sing without
she's
tanpura.
Okay.
It's
She's fine without tanpura.
Manuva Ram Naam Ras Pije. Manuva Ram Naam Ras Pije. Tyaja kusanga satsanga baithanita. Tyaja kusanga satsanga baithanita. Hari charcha sun लीजिए रे मन राम नाम रस पीजे. मनुआ राम नाम रस पीजे. जो पल जाए फिर नहीं आए. जो पल जाए फिर नहीं आए, हर पल सुमिरन कीजे, हर पल सुमिरन कीजे। राम नाम भव पार लगाए, राम नाम भव पार लगाए, राम नाम भव पार लगाए। जग जल में मत भीजे, रे मन राम नाम रस पीजे, मनुआ राम नाम रस पीजे।
Nice, nice.
काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह को, काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह को, बाहर चित्त सो दीजे, चित्त सो दीजे। मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर, मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर, मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर, गिरिधर नागर, गिरिधर नागर। मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर, ताहि के रंग में बीजे, रे मन राम नाम रस पीजे, मनुआ राम नाम रस पीजे। त्यज कुसंग सतसंग बैठनित, त्यज कुसंग सतसंग बैठनित, हरि चर्चा सुन लीजे, रे मन राम नाम रस पीजे, मनुआ राम नाम रस पीजे।
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manju. By the way, I'm so fortunate. My mom was a classical musician and a teacher as well. I wish I had learned something. My wife is a musician, so that helps out. That's how we spend our weekends. I do write. I have a CD published, a few years ago with Bhimsen Joshi's disciple Anand Bhate and others. But in my spare time, I write, and I'm trying to get DJ to perhaps do some music magic on some of my writings. So hopefully one of these days he will give us that work.
So thank you for even considering me to be a candidate to do some creative work. But yeah, this is something which is new.
Yeah, there is a CD that came out from Fountain Music that I wrote the lyrics.
Okay.
These are all classical writings, but you can see that on YouTube on Harivandana.
Okay.
But I dabble with a lot of other things, and I'm hoping that one of these days DJ and myself will have some fun.
We will collaborate for sure. I'm not in the process, but I'll do it. So there is a bandish in Bhatia. There is a rag Bhatia. You are fully prepared in rhythm. I'm getting some background noise. So if you go on mute. So what I'll do is I'll sing a few lines of that Bandish. Again, Kumarji. Maruji bholo na mohe Maruji bholo na mohe ro ro jagat sari ratiya ro ro jagat sari ratiya कछुनाई जाने मारे मन मारुजी बोलो ना मोहे मोहे मारुजी बोलो ना मोहे अब अगर तुम बिन रतन लागे माने अब अगर तुम बिन रतन लागे माने अब अगर तुम बिन रतन लागे माने कछुनाई जाने मारे मन मारुजी भूलो ना मोहे मोहे मारुजी भूलो ना मोहे मोहे
वाह वाह वाह
क्या
वाह
बात
जी,
है, बहुत खूब,
क्या बात,
बहुत खूब.
वाह जी.
You know, that reminds me, you know, DJ, one of the things that about Kumarji, like he used to say that when you have to tune your heart and the outside swar, that so if you said dha and you know the outside dha and your heart's dha, if that is matching, that's when you're really singing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists tend to kind of display that they are good, and so they try to say the dha outside, but the inside of their heart, that dha is not the same dha. And he used to emphasize so much that your music should be same as inside of your heart as it is outside, and that's what a true musician will do. So that kind of reminded me of that.
So
Maybe I'm so honored, Dhananjay Bhai. I'm so, thank you for this great evening.
I think you guys' presence gets us going, and we could do this all the time, full time.
Good.
But,
And actually, I think Kumar ji is called rebellious because he got the classical music outside the courts of the kings. You know, usually classical music used to be the kings, and you have best musician in the court.
Yeah.
And he got it outside the court among the common people with common compositions like Nut and all this. So that's why it's like a very different approach from the classical point of view, and it's amazing. Good job, DJ Bhai, and very nice singing. Thank you.
Thank you. You're super kind. All the credit goes to Girish because he gave the idea, and then without we couldn't have done this today. But Girish, maybe educate us on where did he bring out his electrifying style? Because everybody sings khayals, bandishes, they sing those notes and such, right? But bringing that energy, having one lung obviously reduces your air capacity and such, but that electrification, I don't know whether it came from his guru or such, or because he had to finish his tan in quick, short time, is why he had to just rattle it through and zip it by as fast as he could. Maybe you know more.
So actually, I had the same question. So Kalpana ji told me that, I mean, this is again what she told me, is that when Kumarji came to Devas, he was very, very depressed because he had seen the peak, and he was like almost like a Bollywood equivalent of star in that era, and then all of a sudden he becomes nobody in an instant. And so he was very, very depressed when it came to Devas. And so one of the first thing, and Muzumdarji was like 8 year, like an older brother to him. And so he said, Kumar, don't worry, you'll do fine. And he kind of gave him that encouragement. But he became sort of his, let's say, guy who suggested, look, Kumar, now that your lung capacity is gone, here is what I think you should do. And then Kumarji apparently really took that seriously. That gave him more confidence that, okay, I can sing it with that kind of an idea. And then apparently he practiced along those and it worked.
Yeah.
So that was a good question, actually. That's one of the things I learned from Kalpanaji.
Yeah. Himanshu, seems like you have studied Kumarji's music and contributions for a long time. Maybe you want to pitch in and mention any bandishes or bhajans or whatever comes to your mind. You can stick with your own style.
No, I mean, I didn't study anything on the Kumar, but yeah, I was really curious. I started learning classical music when I heard his name, and he was a child prodigy. And then I asked my teacher, why it is a rebellion? What is so special? He says, music used to be always have a patronage from kings and, rich people. So Tansen, Akbar's court, they're always with big gharanas. And he actually rebelled and he says, music belongs to the folks and masses, and it should be in the abhangs, it should be bhajan, it should be common people. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can just sing 2 lines of just some music I learned.
Please.
On, I think, Rang Malkos. Ai bahar sab ban phuli chameli champa kaliyan rang rangeli. Ai bahar sab ban phuli आयो बसंत सिंगार कर आली आयो बसंत सिंगार कर आली गाए बजाए फागुन की हो गाए बजाए फागुन की होरी आई बहार सब बन फूली आई बहार आई बहार आई बहार सब बन फूली.
Very nice. Very
nice. Sorry, my throat is not
Wow.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. What do we do now? Should we wrap with something special? Last item for the evening. Girish, you have anything to mention, like a Kabir bhajan or such that you mentioned? Or something like that.
Yeah. So I think the only one other thing, perhaps, maybe something of a, let's say, I think, let me, I had one thought that I was thinking, one thing about, I think, let's see what, I had a thought around his, one of the contributions that Kumar did, which is very unique, that why he was so good in, like, if you look at his Darbari Rag, for example, Darbari Rag can be slow, it can be fast, it just depends on how that singer wants to bring. And Kumarji was so good at bringing that bandish, and what the bandish's interest is, or rather intent of that bandish is. And then what Kumarji would do, and he was so good at it, was he will only focus giving the darshan of that rag that will do justice to the feelings within that bandish, and he will completely ignore the other part.
Yeah.
While the normal musicians, they try to display which doesn't have anything to do with the bandish's intent.
Correct.
And this was one of the beautiful things that Kumarji did to those bandishe. And then also he emphasized that, hey, look, this is what I feel, but by all means, paint the canvas that the way you feel. And he would give that liberty to you.
Yep. Yeah, the part that I like about him is he was always full on. No matter which bandish, which song or bhajan you take of him, from the first note to the end, the 100% total energy throughout. Number one. Number two, I think he was one of the. I think he was the only person I have seen whose quality of sur was so precise, so much in pitch and scale throughout, end to end. That is so hard to cultivate. And that probably is one reason why he sings with power. The moment you take the power away, the quality of sur fizzles away as well, right? So you can actually hit that note precisely only if you have pumped in the right amount of power. So I think he was able to do that even with one lung. That's phenomenal, out of the world, really. But,
yeah, I think one additional thing that kind of goes with what you just said is that the way he was exploring that particular rag, what he would do is to teach his students. Actually, he would say that, think of it like this is like a ajgar who has swallowed this stuff, and now the part is going to be missing from that thing. And then how will that ajgar sing? And apparently he wrote a lot of his own bandishes that would actually say that, okay, darbari, the slow pitch, slow type will be like this, and this is, he'll write a bandish to do that. And then the fast one, okay, this is the bandish, and he beautifully illustrated those through those bandishe, and then that's how he taught his students. Gotcha. So that was one of his unique contributions too.
Awesome. Great. I think this was a good experience. We didn't plan much. Like Girish, I bugged you just yesterday or day before probably, and you said I'll be ready with something. So thank you for scrambling and jumping in. But I think when we do it on the fly and with total heart, I think good things come out. So not much of planning, hardly any preparation on my part, but look at you guys. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in, and do it again every Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, DJ, for arranging it. It was pleasure, but more like I'm looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Let's do it. All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Namaste.
Yes,
have a great day, guys.
Thank you for joining. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you, DJ Sahib.
Right.
Keep it going.
Feel better, but feel better.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Okay, bye.
I take care, Yogi.
Good to see you, Grish.
Yeah, same here.
See you again. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Avinash.
Yeah.
Acha, good night. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Namaskar.
Bye.
Atmana.